Hello, everyone. Hope you all are having a fantastic day so far. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. Today, we are going to be going over web administration, how to save time and effort in eCommunity. My name is Luke Schrader. I may be a new face to many of you. I am the Customer Success Manager over here at Andar. Very shortly, you all will be hearing from me very soon. Also presenting today is Nate Shuckers, which I'm sure many of you are very accustomed to. Just a quick agenda, and then we'll pass it over to Nate to get going. But first off, Nate's going to start going through the hard way of web customizations through Andar. And then after that, he is going to go through the easier way of doing web administration, which this entire webinar is being set up for. Throughout the webinar, we're going to be taking questions, and Nate will pause and things like that. But we will also do a little Q&A at the end of the session as well. With that said, Nate, I will pass it over to you.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so like Luke said, anybody who's been using ePledge or eCommunity for quite some time, we haven't made a whole lot of change to how easy or how hard it is to manage your web pages. So we're talking about logged in pages, not logged in pages, I attend pages, e-volunteer pages. We haven't made a huge change to a ton of that in quite some time. I think it's been about a year, maybe a year and a half ago at this point, maybe a little bit longer. I forget. We introduced web administration. Personally, I think it revolutionized the way that you can interact with your web pages. It makes adding web options and web notes a lot easier. It's a much more visual component rather than trying to find the web notes and web options. So what we found was we were getting a bunch of support calls, and a bunch of people were asking how to find this particular web note. And even some of our staff were going through kind of the quote unquote old way or the hard way that I'll show you in a second. And we realized that maybe this new web administration feature wasn't highlighted enough, maybe it wasn't featured enough, or just maybe people didn't know about it enough. So this was kind of why this opportunity came up for this webinar, is to show the easy way, make it a little bit easier on yourselves, finding web notes, finding web options, and kind of playing with your websites, your ePledge websites or your iAttend websites, eCommunity websites. So first, the old way, and this is the way that I grew up using, this is the way that maybe a lot of people are still managing web notes or web options. What we used to teach, and I taught this very specifically in all of my ePledge trainings, is you would find the web customization menu item. So that's under uh, eCommunity down here, eCommunity, admin, and then web customization management and web customizations. And when you open that menu, you would get a tree that looks like this. And this is, I used to say, this is a list of all of the web options and all of the web notes that are available in Andar to modify. So, we had the up top, we had all of the web notes that are available with all of the default text and out of the box language and all of that kind of stuff. The bottom section was all of the notes that you guys had set up for customizations. And then to be able to find one of those web notes, so bits of text on your web pages, you would have to come in here and do a find. And maybe we're looking for a web note that contains the word login, and we do find, and it narrows that list down to all of the bits of text on any of your web pages that have the word login, right? So lots of different context there. Maybe it's a button that we're talking about, or there's a back to login message. So it was kind of like it narrowed it down a little bit for me. but it didn't narrow it down enough for me to say, oh, this is the exact one that I need to modify. So it did a okay job, right? It was maintainable for a little while, but there's a much easier way to do this now. So rather than going through and finding a web note or a web option that you have added or haven't added and don't even know exists, web administration was designed to really help out with that. So there are cases, we'll come back to this in a little bit, but there are cases where this method still comes in handy, at least for the time being. So we'll come back to that. I don't want to completely absolve this method for you because there are times when you might need to go through this, but hopefully the route that I can show you will clear up 80, 90% of all of your web note web option issues. So let's get out of this window for a second. The new method is pretty straightforward, and I'm going to show you the setup portion of it first. The setup is actually really easy, but I'll show you the setup, and then I'll show you the results of it here. So we'll just open up an individual account. So I've got my Evgeny Malkin account. We're going to go to the eCommunity tab. So we're going to look at Evgeny's web permissions. So that's the web access tab. And then we've got this web user info button over here. So anybody who's been using any of our e-community modules for some time, this probably is very familiar. This is where the individual account's username and password and all of the different roles for that particular individual account are set up. So this screen, right, we've got the user ID is just Gino, and then we've got a password down here. So down below, again, you're probably familiar with this if you've been using e-community modules for a while. We've got the different roles that Malkin can log in as, right? He can log in as a donor, and as a matter of fact, that's his default. But he can also switch roles to be an ePledge administrator. So we're going to utilize that for a second, and we'll come back to this with a kind of an advanced step here. But the web administration is kind of lives in this little tab down below, and we did hide it for a reason. We don't want it to be visible for everybody. We don't want it to be big and blaring, even though it's this really awesome feature. We do make it hidden kind of in a way because we really wanted to make sure that when you turn this on, it's very specific. You are turning it on for very specific accounts. You wouldn't want to turn this on for any random donor or any random person who gets to your website and logs in. So this is really only for your internal staff, or potentially it could be for a campaign coordinator at a company that you run if you trust them to go and update their own sites. So it can be used for either or both. But in either case, it is really specific. We want to make sure that you're only enabling this option for the people who know what they're doing, the people that you trust to make changes to the website. Okay, so once you do click on the web administration, it pops this little window open, and we can see that Gino doesn't have this checked. So this means that if we were to log in as Evgeny Malkin right now, he would just see the normal donor experience, no difference whatsoever. But when you do check this little checkbox, again, this is a security thing. We're just making sure, hey, this is a really powerful thing. Are you 100% sure you want to give access to this person? Yeah, I do. Continue. So when I've turned this on, it will now enable web administration just for this one specific person. Doesn't have anything to do with anybody else. There's nothing else tied to this. It is literally turning this on for one specific person. And to show you that, I'm just going to click the login button. That opens up my web page, and it auto logs me in as Evgeny Malkin. That is a very handy button. Sometimes that goes unnoticed. That was added a couple years ago, but allows you to log in as the donor so you can see exactly what that donor is seeing without having to know their password. So if you ever get a troubleshooting issue or whatever, you can always look that person up, click the login button, and it'll log in as them so you don't have to guess what they're seeing. Okay, so with this, we don't see anything here currently. Let me log out. Let's do. I did not update the button. That was my issue. When you turn that checkbox on, you do have to click the update button. Okay, so now we've got this enable web administration checkbox. I also check this authorize all parent accounts. This particular account doesn't have any parent accounts or subsidiaries, but if you do have parent subsidiaries, that checkbox will allow you to make changes to parent subsidiary account relationships as well. But clarify my own mistake. Check the checkbox, click the update button, then we'll log in. And while this is loading, if anybody has questions or anything, there is, I think, a question feature that you can use in Teams. So feel free to submit questions through that. We'll try and check in with some questions here in a little bit. Okay, so now that I actually clicked the update button and updated that web permission record, there's this new little gear. And again, it's kind of hidden, but this new little gear up in the top left corner, this is what allows this particular user to turn on the features of web administration. So if I click the little gear icon, we can see it says web admin. Now we've got 3 checkboxes, and these are the features for web administration. So again, rather than going and trying to find, I'm just going to pick something down here. Rather than trying to find this web note that is created for the homepage, I can edit this web note directly from this page using web admin. All I have to do is check the checkbox for web notes. It'll refresh the page, and when the page refreshes, any web note that exists on the web page that is available for editing will have a little pencil next to it. So you can see this the title up here, Pittsburgh Penguins Portal, or there's that web note that I was talking about before for the homepage. You don't have to go through Andar to edit these now. If I wanted to change this, I can just click the little pencil. It's going to pop open a window. Okay, and it's going to allow me to change whatever I can edit. We'll talk about that in a second. Whatever I can edit, it will allow me to edit. Well, I've only given Malkin permission to edit the Pittsburgh Penguins account. It doesn't allow Malkin to do anything with the tailoring account or any other company. That's why we saw that little message that popped up that said, you can't edit this. It's because I haven't given Malkin the permission to edit the tailoring account. And if we look at this little table up above, you can see that the note that we're looking at right now with the note variable, it says org name portal, that's on the tailoring account. So Malkin doesn't have permission to edit this, but what he can do is add his own. So if I go up here and click add note, it allows me to add the organization. If there are multiple organizations, then again, we'll show you this in a second. You have a list of different organizations to choose from here. Again, he only has access to the Pittsburgh Penguins, so it only allows me to add Pittsburgh Penguins as the organization. And what we can do is, okay, we'll type something in there. It gives you all of the same options that you would expect with web notes. So if you wanted to choose the role of all, you can choose the role of all. If this only goes to your employee donor roles, this would limit it to all only employee donor roles, and all of your other roles would not see this note. So all of the same rules for web notes and web options that we've been teaching for years and years and years, those all still apply. They're just now on the web. So I'm going to make this for the role of all, because I do want everybody to see this in this use case. You've got your class B2s, your do not formats, this account only, and cease pecking, and set expiry and effective dates. That, again, is all the same as what we've been teaching for years and years and years. So I don't want to get too in the weeds on this. It's more about this web administration feature and not kind of basics of ePledge. But if you're familiar with ePledge, all of these checkboxes work exactly the same. We also have note variables. So if, again, you're familiar with note variables, instead of putting in somebody's name, you could actually put in, oops, their, let's see, account employee name. You could insert their employee name, right? So all of the note variables that you're used to using in traditional web notes are available through this note variable dropdown as well. So For demonstration purposes, you can also format this, right? So if I wanted to make this red, let's do red. So I've now made this message red. Okay. So again, just like adding a web note through Andar, it's just on the website itself. So down in the bottom right corner, I've got an add button. Once I click that add button, now we see in real time that it changed that web note. And then now it says exactly what we typed in, right? So rather than going in and finding that title web note, adding the organization, adding the text, formatting the text all through Andar, it's now done in real time right on the website for you. If I want to go back and make a change to that, I can hit the pencil button. I can go in and make any changes that I want to it. Or if I wanted to get rid of this entirely and kind of revert back to what the tailoring count has, I can hit the expire button. And it changes this back for all of the people who would be logging into the Penguins portal now. So we don't delete web notes through web administration. We only expire them. So if I were to go into Andar and look up all of my title web notes or find that particular web note that I just expired, you would see an expiration date on it. That's kind of a safety feature. We were kind of forcing you to go back and delete those after the fact because maybe you make a mistake and it's not so easy to go back and recreate something down the road. We made it easy for you to kind of go back and revert to an old expired web note. So that's kind of the basis of this, right? The beauty of it, I'm going to show you one of my favorite things because this, when I was in customer care, a lot of my questions would be, can I add some text to this section? And they would, grab a screenshot and they would show me where they wanted to add some web notes. I would have to go in and try and find, is there a web note available for that particular spot or not? Whoops, sorry. And with this, it even shows you any of the placeholders. So any spot that there is a placeholder for a web note, but there isn't anything currently there, this even shows you all of those little placeholders. So that was one of my favorite features. So like this, for example, I would all the time, I would get a support ticket that would said, I'm on the pledging page and right under where it says, please select your pledge type, I'd like to put some instructions about how to select a pledge, or maybe I want to do something specific for payroll and put a little note in there. Can I put some text in there? I would always have to try and look up what that web note is, tell the person, then yes, you can go. Well, here you can see this is just a blank web note. If I turn this off, it's just going to show a blank spot under that text. So just looking at this page, you can't tell very easily, is there a web note here or not? Well, just turn on your web notes and it shows you all of those little placeholder spots. So it's really, really handy for finding placeholders for web notes. It's really, really handy for finding those hard to find, like the login button where there's 500 notes that have the word login. It's really handy for a lot of options. One of the other things I do want to point out, if you ever did want to look this particular web note up in Andar, the name of the web note is up here in the header. So back to that tree that we opened up the session with, selection of type dash top, that's going to be like the tree on the left-hand side that you could drill down to. And then this is the actual name of the web node itself in brackets. So if you ever needed to look something up in Andar, maybe you just want to get in and do some like code. I mean, you can edit code here, but if you really want to get in and do some special coding or anything like that, it might be better to do it through Andar. And if you need an easy way to look that up, you can actually look it up by the name of the web note up in that top bar, up in the top corner there. So that's the basics. I'm going to pause there and grab a drink. Luke, any questions that came in that I can answer before I jump into the next little bit here?
None so far.
All right, sounds good. So the next part is I mentioned that Malkin only has access to the Pittsburgh Penguins. Well, what if you hire Evgeny Malkin and he's now part of your staff and he manages a bunch of other companies? Well, what you can do is we'll go back into his account. So this is just his web user record again. by default, he can edit any of the organizations that are in this list, right? So he's an employee of the Pittsburgh Penguins. He's got the role of ePledge administrator and the donor, but maybe you want to give him a little bit more, a few more permissions. What you can do is use this additional authorized accounts down here, and you can add whatever accounts that you want him to be able to add web notes or web options to. So, for example, if he's one of your employees, maybe he's a power user. You can add. Well, we'll start with maybe he manages American Bearings as well. So he's the person who is responsible for making sure that the American Bearings web page is edited the way it should be. Choose American Bearings, click the little plus in here, click the update button. I've learned my lesson there. I think I can reload this. We'll see. Usually with any kind of permission stuff, you have to refresh a page for it to take shape. You might have to log out and log in. I forget on this one. We'll go back and edit that web note that I was just playing with. Yeah, let's log out and log back in. What will happen when I log out and log back in, I'll now have access to American Bearings in this dropdown. So let's hit cancel. We are going to log off. And then we are going to use that login button again. Whoops. So we'll log back in. And when that comes up and my web notes are available, I should have access to add web notes and web options for American Bearings in addition to the Pittsburgh Penguins. Okay, we'll turn on our web notes. And I'm just going to find a random web note down here. Click the edit button. Okay, it's still saying I'm not authorized. That's because we're only looking at the tailoring account. But if I go to add note, oh, I still don't have access. There's maybe something wrong in my environment, but when you add an additional permission, you should have access. Let's go and add. Let's see if. Let's close this first of all. I don't need to get mixed up on what environments I have open. So let's try this. Let's add permission as an American Bearings employee donor. That's a definite way to force this in. So let's try and refresh this. And I do have a, excuse me, I do have a test environment going. So it wouldn't surprise me if I have changed something in coding that I shouldn't have. Okay. Yeah, let's try one more time. We will log out and log back in. Okay. And if this account doesn't work, I will log in as some other account just to get to see the end result without having to keep going through my testing here. Okay, let's go and edit this. Add a note. Yeah, there's something weird with this, either with this account or something I'm doing that I'm missing. But I'm going to log you in as one of my accounts. It isn't very clean to look at, but it's got a lot of options on it. Come on. In. And while that's logging me in, I will show you that account in Andar. So under eCommunity, web access, web user info, you can see, I've got a bunch of stuff just because I'm testing. So I've got different organization accounts here: American Bearings, Big Brothers Big Sisters, Griffin Place. But then if I scroll down to my web administration, I've got my tailoring account and my what in my system is considered my local master account. So that's my United Way, my local United Way account. Those are both in the pecking order. So if I go in and add a web note or a web option to the tailoring account, it applies to everybody. If I go in and add a web note or web option to the Great Lakes Region United Way, that is in, again, my campaign account. That's my local master. It's also in the pecking order and would apply to all of the organizations underneath that particular United Way account. So know your pecking order to help out there. But now when I go and look at my web notes, I will have a bunch more options here. All right, so edit this guy. And now when I add a note, I've got Nate's Test Company, but then I've also got Whirlpool. There's my tailoring account, so I can add web notes to anything that I have permissions for now. So that's what it'll look like when you add the proper permissions. That means that me, as a staff member of this particular United Way, I can go in and change the tailoring account web note for every single organization by adding it to the tailoring account here. Right, so it gives me a lot more power. That's also why we put a lot of these warnings on any of those windows that you see. Are you sure you really want to do this? Yes, you want to make sure that you're only adding this for the right people. Couple other things I'll point out here. There's an edit with Andar button. So what this button does is if you click it, it will actually open up Andar. I should make the clarification there. If you have Andar already open, if you actually have the Andar application already open, and it's in the same place that you're using your web browser, it'll actually open up the web customization menu, and it'll filter down and show you just this web note. So that edit with Andar, again, is kind of a shortcut. You could go and look up this particular web note through that customization tree. Or if you just want a shortcut to it in Andar, you can click on this button. Just be a little careful, because if you're using Andar like in a remote desktop and you're using your browser on your actual physical laptop, there's no way to make that connection, right? But me, I'm using Andar and my web browser both on my local environment. So clicking that button will open up Andar for me as long as I have Andar open. So people who are using the web browser and Andar in separate screens won't work so well. But if you're using it in the same screen or in the same environment, I should say, then it's a shortcut screen for you. Couple other things here. Let's show you web options. So web options functions similarly. It's not going to give you a little pencil icon, but it does allow you to add or modify any of the web options that are on these pages as well. So same rules apply. If you only have one permission for one company, it only allows you to add or modify web options for that one company. If you give that account multiple permissions, then they're going to have access to do whatever they want for whatever whatever organizations they have permissions for. So when I turn that checkbox on, down in the bottom left corner, you'll see two little icons here: session info, which I'll point out in a second, but the web options. So when you click that, it brings this little toolbar up, and now you get all of your web options that are available. So there are global options, and then there are also page-specific options. So right now I'm on the main login page, or the home page, I should say. So it's going to give me some options that are global, right? There's my framework web option. There's a login web option. There's a miscellaneous option. Those are global across all of eCommunity, right? The login page can be used for eVolunteer and ePledge and a bunch of other things. Same with the framework, same with the miscellaneous. Those get used in a lot of different ways throughout and are not just on this specific page. But if I want to see the page specific, then here's where I see my home page. So if you're familiar with ePledge or eCommunity, there's a home page, and you can show or hide a thermometer. So if I click on this show thermometer, it's got this, again, we've got our roles and the companies. And if I want to change any of the options on this show thermometer one, I can turn it on or turn it off. Okay. So if I wanted to add for another company that I have access to, I can say for Whirlpool, I want the role of employee donor. And let's get rid of that. We're going to turn that on. So right again, web option I can add, and for Whirlpool now, I have the ability to add a web option for Whirlpool without ever having to log into Andar. If I want to get rid of that, just click the little trash can. It turns it back off for me. It's grayed out, and we can hit update. If you see this little blue Andar icon, a lot of these web options are only editable in Andar. So there are a bunch for like either security reasons or technical reasons. It's not really possible to allow a web page to interact with some of the options on these. So when you see this little open in Andar, that is telling you, hey, you can see what web option is available here, but you can't edit it from the web. So we're working on going back and adding some functionality to some of these things, but as you go through these, you'll notice this icon, and this will again do the same thing. Where if you click on it, it'll open up that web option in Andar if you have Andar open in the same environment, and it'll shortcut you to that particular web option. So it still does shortcut you to all of that. So as you go through different pages, there's this little refresh button. So if I were to go from the home page to the pledging page, I would want to click this refresh button, because this refresh button is going to refresh the page specific options that are available there. So I don't think it's going to change anything on this screen, but if I click this, it should refresh it if it needs it. If it doesn't need it, it's not going to do anything. So yeah, refreshed, but nothing down here has changed. If I go into the pledge, and open up that web option piece again, and we'll go to refresh. And because this is kind of not the real pledge page, we'll see if it adds anything separate here. Nope. Let's go one more page. There's nothing specific about this page. But when we get into like the pledging page where you've got all of your pledge types and all of that kind of stuff, that's where we should see a whole bunch of different pledge options that show up, or a whole bunch of different web options that show up. Yeah. So now we've got our pledge options. So there's our ACH Bill Me Cash and all of the other options that are available, pledge web options. So those are definitely different than what we were looking at for the home page. So this page specific options narrows it down to just the web options that are on this particular page that wouldn't be on other pages. So it's kind of narrowing it down from all of the web options that are out there that have nothing to do with this page. It's only filtering it down to the ones that have some relationship to this particular page. So last thing here that I'll show you is the session info. And session info, when you click on it, if you're familiar with a tailoring account, this is super helpful. And again, from when I was answering support tickets, this would have been super, super helpful, because it literally tells me this is the pecking order that the web options and web notes are looking at for this particular person who is logged in. So at the top, it tells me what role am I logged in as. It tells me I'm logged in as an employee donor. And then it tells me what account am I logged in as. Nate, that's my account. What organization, what parent company, if there is a parent company, what's the master account in that particular pecking order. So United Way of Nate is my master account. What campaign account is this on? And then finally, it shows my tailoring account. So if you're looking to troubleshoot, like where's this note or where's this web option coming from, almost always, and I say almost kind of jokingly, but a lot of times, it's something in the pecking order. There's another web note or another web option in the pecking order, and if you want to check to see what level should I be looking at, this helps you troubleshoot. So first off, is it on my account? Is the web note or web option on my account? as an employee donor. If not, then go to the next one. So the session organization, that's the org count. Is there a web option or a web note on Nate's test company with a role of employee donor? If not, then you can go to the parent account, then you can go to the master, the campaign account, and then finally, if it's not on anything up above, then that web note or web option is on your tailoring account with the employee donor role. So it's really helpful for troubleshooting. If you've got a weird bit of text that you want to change and you're not sure where that is, this session info really shows you that full pecking order so you can go and troubleshoot. There are a couple of exceptions that I'm going to make note of. Um, we are working on some of these exceptions. I think in the new stuff that we've got coming out in the very near future, we may have the ability to fix some of these exceptions. But right now, images. So this banner image, there is a little web note icon up here that I can click, and I can change the text, but you can't insert an image yet. Again, we've got some technical stuff that is happening in the background that I think we'll be able to address that pretty soon. But if you wanted to change the text that's in this banner image, you can change that. But we can't replace the image quite yet. So that's an exception. You can go in through Andar and add an image or a banner or any of that kind of stuff directly in Andar. Can't do it through the web yet. There are also some other exceptions. So menus, notice that there are no little pencil icons next to any of your menus. Yeah, they're text, but they're technically in a separate part of Andar. They're the e-menu structure. So they're not a web note or a web option. They're something completely separate. So we can't edit those guys. Also, sometimes things like this donate button and this get help button, those are on my look and feel template. It's actually like hard coded into the look and feel template. Those are not web notes. Those are not web options. So you won't find little pencils next to some of those. So there are some exceptions here and there. Again, some of these, you might find a button here and there that you're not able to edit, like the next and the cancel. There's a little bit of a challenge there with how do we make the pencil icon apply to this without actually clicking the button. So there's some technical stuff that we're working on, but those are all little bits and pieces that we're going to be adding as we go on. So I'd say about 70 to 80% of all the web notes that you need to modify are available on this already. Okay, so I think let's pause. We're getting close to time, but I want to pause and see if anybody has any questions, if anything has come in the last few minutes, or if there's anything I can clear up for anybody here.
Yeah, a little bit ago, Bonnie had asked. They manage all of their ePledge accounts for their UW, and they were just wondering if there was a way to give her access, so to give access to all of them without having to add individually.
Yeah, you mean back in this screen. So here you
Correct.
do want to add each individual account. Excuse me. You do want to add each individual account here. You can do a tailoring account. So if you want to make one change for all of them, and this goes back to basic principles of ePledge, if all of your companies get the same web option or the same web note, you don't need to add it to every single account. You want to make that change on the tailoring account. So make it once and it applies to everybody. And I'll give an example. One of the mistakes that I made early on in my ePledge career is I would type in "Welcome to the 2012 campaign." Right? I would type in 2012. It would have been much smarter for me to use a variable that says "Welcome to campaign year campaign." Right? That way it rolls over every single year. So if you are finding that you're adding the same web note or web option to every single account and it's exactly the same, don't do that. Put it on the tailoring account. Then you can make exceptions for those companies that you don't want it, right? So if you're managing 20 accounts, change the web note once or the web option once, and then maybe the 2 or 3 companies that are the exceptions, you can add a web note or a web option to kind of counter that. So if you're adding all of the web notes and web options to every single account, be careful. It took a lot of maintenance on my end. Think about adding it to the tailoring account or somewhere in the pecking order rather than to every single account. Outside of that, if truly every single company needs to have completely separate web notes, you're going through a lot of hassle, but I understand. You do have to add the permissions all separately on your web user account. So we're there's no way to do it for a whole bunch without adding all of the different accounts. Good question, but think about your pecking order, and if there's a way that you can make a generic web option or a generic web note work a little bit better so that you're not adding it to every single account. Anything else? Any other questions?
That was it.
Okay. I think that was the last thing. I'll just we don't have a whole lot of time to go into it, but you may have noticed this registration pages. So we looked at the logged in experience, but if you want to go out and edit any of your I-attend pages, any of your single page reg and pledge pages, you can click on the registration pages in your web admin, and then it brings up this little menu where you can go through and say, I want to go out and find my I attend page for my CN tower. And any event occurrence that is out there in web publish that you have access to, you can go and select it and hit the go button, and it actually takes you out to that I attend page or event register any of your employee, if you do an employee reg and pledge page, or the tributes, which was then kind of a new function that we added last year. If you want to go out and use this web administration to modify any of those kind of registration style pages, you can come in here, click the go button, and it will actually reload the page and show you that particular page, so you can edit it there. One little caveat there, it logs you out. So you can't just jump back into where we were. You actually have to log back in. Again, kind of a security function. But you can see I can go and make changes to my tribute page just the same way that I was showing earlier. It's just that if I want to go back and edit anything else again, I have to go and sign in again. So you'll sign back in as yourself, and then you'll have access to go to any of those other pages that you were just at. So
And I apologize, Nate. There was actually two more questions.
sure, go for it.
One from Drayton. They wanted to confirm whether enabling web permissions in Andar applies only to the tailoring accounts, and or if it also extends to general account editing. They manage specific accounts within Andar and want to ensure that they're using the permissions features correctly. They just
Yeah.
want clarification if this permission is meant solely for tailoring, if it could be, or if it could be used more broadly.
Yeah, so it can be used for any account that you want. So back to my Evgeny Malkin example. This section up above, it shows you what Malkin normally has access to. So by default, he only has these two roles with this one organization that he can add web notes or web options to. If you want to add those additional preferences, you can do anything down below, right? Like this shows me that I can add any other company, I can add any spot in the pecking order, I can add the tailoring account. So if I wanted Malkin to have access to the tailoring account, I can do that. But if I also want him to be able to edit American bearings as well, I can add that. So it's not just the tailoring account, but by default, the only thing that you get access to is what's in this top table. If you want to give them additional accounts to add or modify web options or web notes, you have to add it down here in this bottom table. So you can do anything. It's not just applying to the tailoring account. You can put in campaign accounts, parent accounts, subsidiary accounts, agency accounts, whatever you want, this particular person. So if you've got one relationship manager that manages 15 accounts, you can add all 15 of those accounts down below in that additional table if you want to, in this additional parameters. Hopefully that answered your question.
Perfect. And then just one final quick question from Colin. Just a clarification, they were wanting to make sure that you can move between web customization accounts.
Yeah. Um, back in, let's see if I can, I'll have to log back in, but that's okay. Web customization accounts are a little nebulous. And what I mean by that is they can apply to a lot of different things. They can apply to Single page reg and pledge. They can apply to an I attend. Like you can apply or append a web customization account to a lot of different registration pages. So what you will see is a lot of times you will see, oh, let's do this. Maybe I'm missing something. I thought we had the ability to add, oh, there it is. I'm really blind. I'm sorry, I went right down here. Up top, there is a web style account. So for example, if I wanted to do my COVID relief fund single page reg and pledge, but I also know that there's a special style account or web customization account, I can come up here and choose that styling account. That's why it's up top. It makes perfect sense. So this is going to say I'm going to access my COVID single page reg and pledge page, but it's also going to apply the giving customization style account. That giving customization style account could apply to my CN Tower event occurrence. It could apply to my tribute list. So up top, you can add in a style account, and it will then allow you to add the web options or web notes to that particular style account. So within this little box, you're not going to see anything for style account, but up top, these are all of the web customizations or web customization accounts or style accounts that exist, and it will apply that whenever you click the go button here. So it's applying that style account separate to the page that you're on there, if that makes some sense. So yes, you can switch between them. You just have to choose in that top drop down box. Good catch. Hey everybody, Nate here again. I wanted to come back to something that I don't think I described very well with the web administration in our webinar yesterday. So I wanted to go back and add a little piece to try and clarify some of it up. Hopefully the explanation will add a little bit more clarity for everybody here. So the use case for this is when you've got one person who needs to manage web notes and web options on the web for a bunch of companies. So the part that I don't think I explained very well is the way that you accomplish that is you put all of the extra accounts, all of the extra organizations in this top section for the web permission. The reason for that is you have to be logged in to be able to add or modify web notes for a particular organization. And this web permission section of the web user is what does that for you. So right now, the way I have it set up, I can only log in as an employee of the Pittsburgh Penguins. I've got a role of donor and role of ePledge admin, so I can only log in as one of those two roles for that one organization, the Pittsburgh Penguins. So if this person is supposed to manage multiple accounts, what you would do is first enable your web administrator checkbox. So that's the first step. And then the second step would be to add any additional organizations and roles to your top section here, to the web permission. So in that case, this person is supposed to manage maybe American Bearings as the employee donor. And also we want this person to be able to manage the American Bearings ePledge administrator web notes and web options as well. So now when I'm logging into my website as this person, I can switch roles between the Pittsburgh Penguins and American Bearings. And then with this enable web administration checkbox, I can add or modify any web notes for either one of those two companies. So let's just update this. We'll go back and log in. So now I'm logged in as an employee, the employee donor role for the Pittsburgh Penguins. I can turn on my web notes. And when I see my web notes, I can go and add or modify any web note that's out there for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Okay, so I'm logged in as an employee of the Penguins. I can only add or modify web notes for the Penguins. Where the extra organization piece comes in as you go down to your role switching menu, wherever it happens to be. You switch organizations to that other company that we added in that box, in my case, American Bearings. So we'll change roles to American Bearings. And now when I go to add or modify any web notes, my options are going to be for American Bearings. So it is really all about what organization you are logged in as on the website. That's what you can add a web note or a web option to. Okay. It's a security feature. It's one thing that we wanted to do just to try and limit and make sure that you weren't getting carried away with adding web notes or web options where you shouldn't be. So you actually physically have to change roles to go and modify web notes or web options for that second company. Again, part of the reason there is that we wanted to make sure that you're using the pecking order, and if you're just copying and pasting from one to the next to the next to the next, you might not want to do that or might not need to do that. You should do it on the tailoring count or some other way. So switch your roles. You can then add or modify any of the additional companies that you've added to this box up here. Okay. This secondary section down here, this is for additional authorized accounts. So if in addition, when I'm logged in, right now I'm logged in as American Bearings employee, if I want an additional authority to add or modify web notes or web options for the tailoring account, that's where this box comes in. So think of this second box down here more of all of the accounts that are in your pecking order, your tailoring account, your campaign account, any of those web customization accounts that you might have. This particular additional authority box is for all of those accounts that are in the pecking order of that, not for additional authorities for companies. So the top box, again, the idea there is that's for all of the companies that you want to make changes to on the website. The additional authority box or authorized box is for anything that's in the pecking order. So hopefully that clears things up for you. Sorry about that. I felt bad that I didn't quite explain that as well as I'd like to. So wanted to throw an additional couple minutes onto the recording and hopefully that clears things up for you. So if you have any questions, feel free to shoot us an email, let us know, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.